So in today's video, I am going to be discussing if the Miami Dolphins, after free agency and all the moves that they have made, are the Dolphins a playoff team? Now, before we get into the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and let's jump right into the video. Now, obviously with this question, it kind of has to do with what's happened in the offseason so far. You're not winning an NFL game on paper. That's pretty dang simple. Like, we've looked at teams in the past and we're like, on paper, this team should go 16-0. They're going to be unstoppable. It's real, like, we do that all the time. So when it comes to the Dolphins, I feel like for me personally, they're in that same situation. On paper, the Miami Dolphins have a great football team. They really do. And based off the talent that they have on their team, they should be a playoff contender. And personally, answering the question, are the Miami Dolphins a playoff contender? I think they are. Like a Super Bowl contender, no. A winner of their division, no. Because they still have to play Buffalo. They still have to get past New England. And don't sleep on the Jets. They've made a couple moves where they can make some noise. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but they've made some noise. But the Miami Dolphins, I really do think this is their best chance to make the playoffs that they've had in a while. Like, they had a 10-6 record a couple years ago. They had their season last year where they, if they could have won a couple more games, they could have made the playoffs. And it feels like this year they've made some really good moves to try to make the playoffs. So let's look at some of those additions that the Miami Dolphins have made. First off, they got a new head coach in Mike McDaniel. I think he's going to change the way that organization plays football. I really do think that he might be able to get them over the hump offensively, something that they weren't able to do with Brian Flores. Now, when it comes to Brian Flores, do I think he should have been fired? No. I think what Brian Flores did last year was a spectacular thing that he did for the Miami Dolphins. I think Chris Greer, Stephen Ross, what they did to Brian Flores was gross. I don't think they should have fired him. I don't think he deserved to be fired. But when it comes to an organization, I guess when it comes to if they wanted an offensive-minded coach, this is the step in the direction that you really want to do, because the Miami Dolphins defense is still going to be really good. But you bring in Mike McDaniel, and it's going to change the way that offense looks week one. Like, we know that's going to happen. But on top of that, trading for Tyreek Hill, like, that's a massive move. They got Teron Armstead. They signed Connor Williams, Cedric Wilson, Teddy Bridgewater, Raheem Mostert, who played with Mike McDaniel, who was the running game coordinator in San Francisco when he was there. So Raheem Mostert's going to know the offensive scheme. You have Chase Edmonds. They were able to re-sign Mike Gesicki, Emmanuel Ogbah, and then you have guys who are already on the team, like Jalen Waddle, Christian Wilkins, Xavier Howard, Javion Holland, Eric Rowe, and Byron Jones. So you have a team that really feels like it's loaded with talents right now. So let's look at the positives. The Miami Dolphins, they went huge in free agency. It felt like they were upgrading at every single position, and now they have a really good receiving core. They have Tyreek Hill, Cedric Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker. Like, they have a really good group of wide receiver talent. So I think the Dolphins, when it comes to just their skill positions, are in a good position. And then you look at their offensive line. They had the worst graded offensive line in the NFL last year. Now, I don't use PFF grades necessarily as heart, but when it comes to offensive line play, I think you could argue that that's something that you could fairly judge easily. You either blocked your guy, you won your assignment, or you didn't. And I mean, you could just watch the Dolphins. Tua had no time to throw last year. So the Dolphins, when it comes to their offensive line, they went from the worst offensive line in football to at least an average offensive line that's going to give Tua some protection, which he massively needs, because of all the issues that Tua has, which we'll get into it here in a minute. Not having an offensive line was one of the big issues that was going on with Tua. So I don't think all the failures that happen with Tua should be placed on his shoulders exactly or fully, but the offensive line was really, really bad. And as I mentioned, he has those, now he can utilize those weapons. Now he's going to have time where he can make some plays. He's not going to have to be running for his life. He can make some of those plays that he needs now and get it to Tyreek Hill. Let Tyreek Hill make some plays. Get it to Jalen Waddle, who's a very good receiver, and he's going to be able to get it to the playmakers and allow them to make some plays. And he has a great tight end in Mike Gesicki, who I don't think gets talked about enough. Like, they have a lot of young, great talent. Not really young necessarily. Tyreek Hill's reaching 30, but you have Jalen Waddle, who's young. And you have a lot of great talent around him who can help him be successful as a quarterback. And then obviously the head coach and Mike McDaniel, you have him who comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree, which is just a spectacular tree of head coaches and coaches in general. Like that, the offensive scheming that Kyle Shanahan, the Shanahan family, they bring to the NFL is just it's masterful. You have to love everything that comes with a Kyle Shanahan type offense, which Mike McDaniel is going to bring. Just the way that they're able to bring guys off the streets and they're instantly a household name running back, the way they utilize their wide receivers like Deebo Samuel, like you can expect a lot of that, I think, in Miami. And now Tyreek Hill, I don't think Tyreek Hill needs to be running the football like he's Deebo, because I think if he does get hit enough times, he's really small. He might get hurt really fast. He's not like a meaty dude like Deebo Samuel, but I think Tyreek Hill, you can use him a lot more. Like the Chiefs used him in gadget ways, but I think now with Mike McDaniel and his speed, Tyreek Hill might be used in even more gadget plays now. And then obviously a really good defense. Now the numbers wouldn't really say they're a good defense, but you also have to understand the fact that their offense wasn't particularly good last year, and that kind of held their defense down. You can only ask a defense to do so much in the NFL before it just breaks and it's not going to look good. So they have a really good defense, and it was brought down due to a lack of offense that the Dolphins didn't have. Which leads me to the negatives of the Miami Dolphins. For the big thing with the Dolphins right now, other than their owner and their GM, because I think they're kind of crazy and I don't really like them, is Tua. I don't think Tua has been given a fair shake in the NFL. Like what the Dolphins have done with Tua has kind of put some really unfair expectations on him this year. Now, obviously in the NFL, it's your job as the quarterback to put your team in a position to win. I completely understand that. But what I'm trying to get at is with Tua, they haven't really given him a full shake in the NFL to develop into at least a solid starting quarterback. Now in the NFL right now, it's hard to be a solid quarterback and win, but I don't even think Dolphins have given Tua that opportunity, because you look at what they've done. Like in games that were very close, they would constantly bitch him for Ryan Fitzpatrick and let Ryan Fitzpatrick go in and win those games. Now, as an organization, you would rather get wins than lose the game. But with Tua and him being young, I think with the position that they were in, they should have just played Tua, let him get that experience in those games, and then allow him to get experience. And I think that would have helped Tyreek. That would have helped Tua's confidence going into games, because they're shooting his confidence. They're just burying it 6 feet under by pulling him from games constantly. So I don't like what the Dolphins do with Tua. I don't think that's really fair, because then you bring him into this season, a guy that you've never given a full shake, a guy that you wouldn't even start when he's healthy enough to be a backup, but like he's healthy enough to be a backup but not start. That's kind of crazy in my eyes. So you bring him into a season where you've never given him a full shake, a full season to start in the NFL, and then you're throwing him into a situation when it comes to having great talent like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, a great head coach in Mike McDaniel. You bring him into that situation, and you're kind of throwing him into the fire. Now, the talent around him's great. Like he has really almost elite level talent around him, but I don't think it's fair for Tua to go in with the expectations for him to light the world on fire just based off these moves. Because when you don't give a guy a couple years to develop, which I don't think the Miami Dolphins did, and then you basically tell him it's boom or bust now, I don't like the way that the Dolphins have really handled Tua in his time in the NFL. Like, I understand as an organization your goal is to win, but you can't expect a guy to go into a season, even if they have all this talent, and be really good. Whenever you killed his confidence, you keep pulling him from games. And just the way that the Dolphins have treated Tua in his 2 years in the NFL has always been kind of weird to me. It really has been, because I don't like the position that Tua's in. I love on paper the talent that's around him, but just the way that it kind of is putting that word out there to Tua, it's like it's boom or bust time now for you, when the organization itself and when the Brian Flores was there, they never really gave him a fair shake in my eyes. I understand that the Dolphins want to win. I'll never get away from that fact. Like, it's the NFL, you want to win. But when you do that as a team, you kind of put almost unfair expectations on a quarterback, and I don't really think that's fair. But then you also have the fact that their division is really tough. They have Buffalo, who that's going to be a matchup nightmare, I think, for the Dolphins all year long. Like, the Dolphins struggle against the Buffalo Bills. Like, the Buffalo Bills are one of the toughest teams to play in the NFL. And then they also have to get past New England, which Miami has been able to constantly beat New England as of late. I think they've won 4 or 5 against New England, which I think is kind of insane, that the fact that the one team that the Patriots can't beat is the Miami Dolphins. I think the Dolphins beat them twice last year, so at least the Dolphins have that going for them, but that is also a thing when you have to play the Bills and New England twice a year. And then on top of that, you have just the fact that they play in the AFC conference, which is just absolutely on steroids this year with the amount of talent that's just going there. You have the AFC West alone. And I think just because of the AFC West, the 4 teams in the AFC West can make the playoffs, which is only going to leave 3 spots for the other division winners. Like, that's how insanely talented the AFC West is now. So the Dolphins are really going to have to hope and pray that all the other teams are just going to beat each other up, and the Dolphins can come out with a couple of wins against teams that they should be, and then also maybe get a couple wins, like beat the Jets twice, maybe get a win over Buffalo if they can, try to continue their success against New England. Like, they're going to have to handle their business in other games while the AFC is beating themselves up. And I think that's the only hope for the Dolphins to make the playoffs in the AFC. On paper, like I said earlier, they should make the playoffs. Like, the Dolphins are a very good team on paper. But when it comes to the conference they're in, and it comes to their division, I don't think they're going to win their division. That's a really tall order for the Dolphins right now to win their division. And then you look at the AFC. Like I said, the AFC West is loaded with talent. You have genuinely, I think, in the AFC, probably 8 to 10 teams that can make the playoffs right now. So when it comes to a loaded AFC, and the games that Miami can win, they have to handle their business. And I think that's the most obvious way to say that they have to win the games that that are definitely winnable to even get a chance to make it to the playoffs. And I think Miami, they have a tough road ahead of them, but on paper, they are a playoff team. But again, we still have to see how these games unfold, and the whole season still has to be played.